let's just get to know a little more about Kostecki, because it's happened all fairly quickly with Brodie, hasn't it? So let's delve in. So, Brodie, first of all, he's actually from Perth. He's at home right now, 25 years old, and his racing career started at a very young age. Cool photo there, look, with cousins Jake and Kurt. There's Brodie in the middle, 3 years old, and very early on he was ranked in the top 50 karters in Australia. So the talent was clearly there. But then he made a really unusual choice that's not part of our normal pathway for a race driver in Australia. He would have been, so 2011, what, 15? He went to America and he got involved in the Ford Focus USAC series, which is sort of a dirt speedway kind of thing, 27 race wins, then jumped up into the NASCAR K&N Pro Series, which is sort of their junior series back then, raced against the likes of Bubba Wallace competitively. That's serious stuff. And when you look at some of this in-car vision of Brodie driving back then, I can now get a sense, particularly with the Gen 3 car, of the brutality, the muscular way he's got to have manhandle this thing around. So he's really well suited to the cars that we've got. Again, unusual conditioning, but in reflection, not bad conditioning for where we are right now at all, but very unusual. But what he did do that was right, he came back and then jumped into our Dunlop series at the time. Really competitive. He jumped in and out and around and about, didn't win a championship, won 4 races, and in 2020 was highly competitive, didn't even do the whole championship. So it was quite clear he was on the roadmap up. But here's where he really hit his straps. Got signed up as a co-driver with Anton De Pasquale at Erebus a couple of years ago, and at Bathurst. We all remember this. This is when Brodie made his mark. This is when he all came onto our radar. This was Jamie Whincup, greatest driver ever. Brodie's a co-driver, and he just stood his ground. He battled, he fought back. He kind of never recognised that was a champion in the other car. He didn't care. In fact, stood his ground, and Jamie ended up in the fence. Nothing to do with Brodie, wasn't Brodie's fault, but that's just the measure of the guy in the race car. So 2021, full-time in supercars. George Cummins, his engineer. This is really important. George, I know George well, he's a mate of mine. He told me yesterday, he's already told me this, he said again, in terms of engineering now, understanding the race car and driver feedback, I've worked with 11 drivers now that have made it to F1. George has been overseas for much of his career. Brodie tops the list. He loves working with him in terms of his engineering nous and feedback. That's a really important asset. If we have a quick look at his champ trajectory, 21, 22, now 23. Quite obviously where this young fella's going, isn't it? And then his first win at the Grand Prix just a couple of weeks ago, Melbourne Grand Prix down there. That was great to see, was always going to happen. So nice to see Brodie finally put that one in the bag. And then I reckon he's really embracing this Gen 3 car. It suits that driving style we're talking about. He can manhandle it a little more. We saw it at Newcastle. We saw it at the Grand Prix. He's tough but fair. He doesn't push people off. He muscles them around, but never breaks the rules. That's what I really like. That's hard to do, much harder than just tipping someone out. So, Brodie Kostecki, his nickname's Bush. It's a long story, but I'll tell you, it came very quickly about him bailing out of a car at a private circuit at a passenger seat at 130 k's an hour because he saw the brake pedal fail. That car crashed. He was in the grass, sliding along, ended up walking out of the bushes covered in mud and alive. So he's got the nickname Bush, and that tells you everything you need to know. Brodie's a bit of a lad, and I reckon that's why we like him. I would have a beer with him probably before I'd have a beer with most people on the pit lane, and I would drink with all of them. They're all good folk. He's really likeable. He's the real deal. So if you're at home sitting on the fence, not really sure who you want to back, well, if you back this guy or just go on the journey with him, I tell you, you will not go wrong. He's a ripper bloke and a great driver, as we're seeing.